Part 71. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 701. Why is he here? At this moment, my brain is foggy. The golden body of the city god is in the city god temple. And another one came out here. What on earth is going on? At this time, I suddenly thought of something. That is the city god of Tianfu City, whose surname is Zhang. Tianqi Zhang is also named Zhang. Is there any connection between the two? The reason why I think of this is actually very simple. That is the pure lotus mark on the palm of my left hand. The pure lotus seal is the same as the 9 eyes heaven realm. They are abilities that should have been mine that were taken away by the 9 evil stars. And every time I encounter the 9 evil stars, my ability will return to my body. The first time I met the city god, there was nothing strange about him. When facing this corpse that looked exactly like the city god, the pure lotus mark given to me by Master Zhang reacted. This city god must have some close relationship with Zhang Tianqi. I jumped off the crystal coffin. No matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't think of a reason. I might as well solve the current matter. If the earthly tribulation evil star is really the city god, then there will definitely be a battle between me and him. I went to the 4 directions of the ancient building, then called out the secret of heaven, bit my middle finger, and then started to draw the 4 gods breaking evil talisman. The 4 gods evil breaking talisman must be drawn with blood as the guide. If you use your mind to draw it, it will not become a symbol. There are 4 gods breaking evil talismans, which borrow the power of the 4 righteous gods to break evil spirits. If it is the real place of the 4 evils, the 4 gods evil breaking talisman will have very little effect. But it is more than enough to eliminate this place of false evil. I will draw the 4 gods breaking evil talismans and paste them in the 4 directions of east, west, south and north respectively. Then he sat cross-legged directly under the crystal coffin, and then muttered something. As I recited the incantation, the 4 gods breaking evil talisman burst out with a dazzling light. The 4 beams of light finally converged on the crystal coffin. I shouted loudly, the light exploded, and a mighty aura erupted from the ancient building and spread to the entire Wolong mountain. The next moment, the 4 chains holding the crystal coffin were slowly untied. The crystal coffin landed with a crash, and I quickly rolled to the side. If it was hit, it would be lifeless. Boom! The crystal coffin hit the ground hard, but it was not damaged at all. I looked at the crystal coffin and decided to open it after much hesitation. I gently placed my hand on the lid of the crystal coffin, and then pushed it open. A gloomy and cold air spread across the face, mixed with a strong evil spirit. The intensity of the evil spirit caused the already restless evil spirit in my body to surge again. The evil spirit in my body has not disappeared. Previously suppressed by Emperor Fengdu, the evil spirit reappeared when he used karma fire. However, now I can completely suppress the evil spirit with the help of the crepe myrtle energy in my body. In addition to the merits accumulated just now, these evil spirits are not exactly the same. I looked at the city god in the coffin. He stretched out his hand to grab the tiger charm next to him. But when I just put my hand into the coffin, the city god suddenly opened his eyes. I was startled, and I quickly grabbed the tiger talisman and backed away, keeping distance from the crystal coffin. I saw the golden body of the city god slowly sitting up. He turned his head stiffly and pointed his face at me. I couldn't feel any expression in his eyes, as if the person staring at you was not a person, but an item. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 702. The city god suddenly woke up, and the pure lotus mark on my left palm became increasingly hot. This made me even more convinced that the golden body of the city god in front of me was one of the 9 evil stars. The golden body is located in the Feng Shui Eye in the place of the false 4 evil spirits, acting as a carrier of evil spirits. From this, I can deduce that the real purpose of the city god is to use the fake 4 evil places as a guide, carry the golden body, absorb the evil spirits from all directions, and finally gain more powerful power. The city god's own strength is already extremely powerful, and he still needs to improve his strength. This makes people wonder, why does the city god want such a powerful force? There was no rush to think about it. The golden body of the city god had already stood up from the crystal coffin. I did not feel the existence of a soul in this golden body. In other words, this golden body was an unconscious walking corpse. However, the evil spirit contained in the golden body is very powerful. The blood-red mist burst out from the golden body of the city god, and then attacked me with overwhelming force. My expression condensed, and I quickly stretched out my left hand to activate the Jinglian mark on my palm. Pure white light burst out from my palm and collided with the blood-red mist. This time, under the influence of the pure lotus mark, the blood mist did not turn into duo white lotus. Instead, it fought against and offset the pure lotus mark. The two forces are comparable, but as time goes by, the power of the pure lotus seal is fading at a speed visible to the naked eye. If this continues, I'm afraid I will be swallowed up by evil spirits. My body already contains evil spirits. Once these evil spirits enter my body, the consequences will be disastrous. I quickly summoned the secret of heaven and drew the evil suppressing talisman to suppress the evil spirit in this golden body first, and then find a way to deal with this golden body. It is impossible for ordinary evil spirits to suppress such terrifying evil spirits. You must use the 8 directions suppression talisman. The evil suppressing talisman from all directions gathers the awe-inspiring energy from all directions to suppress evil spirits. The power of this evil suppressing talisman is many times stronger than the ordinary evil suppressing talisman. Obscure incantations slowly appeared on the 8 blank heavenly secrets. Wave after wave of awe-inspiring energy came from all directions. Just when I wanted to control the Beifang evil suppression talisman to suppress the evil energy in Cheng Jin's body, a terrifying scene appeared. The golden body of the city god also summoned the secret of heaven, which was the 5 elements talisman. The 5 elements talisman is the secret of Longhu Mountain and can only be used by those who have obtained the true inheritance of Longhu Mountain. And the golden body of the city god was able to use this talisman without any consciousness. The 5 elements talisman surrounded me, and the 5 elements magic formation immediately unfolded, enveloping me. Since I am now controlling the 8 directions suppression talisman, once I deal with the 5 elements talisman, the 8 directions suppression talisman will be ineffective and my success will be defeated. So now I can only use the 5 elements talisman to suppress the evil spirit in Jin's body. The 5 elements array started to operate, and vines, fire, and boulders were smashing towards my head and face. At this critical moment, Cai Dai suddenly appeared and resisted these attacks for me. Ouch! Don't be in a daze, hurry up and deal with him. I suddenly came to my senses and quickly controlled the 8 directions suppression talisman to attack the golden body. The evil suppressing talisman from all directions surrounds the golden body, and finally falls in all directions. The awe-inspiring energy in the talisman directly suppresses the evil spirit like a tide back into the golden body. I quickly summoned the heart sword, squeezed the 9 layers thunderdew, and broke the 5 elements formation. I looked at the golden body of the city god with a solemn expression. Although the evil spirit in his body had been suppressed by me, the power erupting from his body still frightened me. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 703. Cai Dai also had a serious face. I rarely see such a look on Nadia's face. Because no matter what time, Cai Dai looks like a carefree tiger girl. It seems that the golden body of the city god is also very scary to her. Lu Su, do you have any way to get rid of this golden body? I shook my head and said, no. Cai raised her head and said, "I have it." I was slightly stunned and quickly asked, "What can I do?" Kadi raised her little hand and replied, "Let him sleep." While Cai and I were talking, the golden body of the city god suddenly spoke. "Lusu." I was slightly stunned and looked at the golden body. I still couldn't feel any soul breath from the golden body. I think the city god must be talking to me through some kind of connection with the golden body. I really didn't expect you to come here in advance. I looked at the city god and asked word for word, "You are one of the 9 evil stars. Your purpose of approaching me is to kill me." The city god let out one jeering sinister laugh after another. "Now that things have developed to this point, I will tell you my true purpose." The golden body of the city god did not move his mouth, but his voice still rang in my ears. "I am the Earth Tribulation Evil Star, one of the 9 evil stars." I felt a chill in my heart, and my guess was indeed correct. However, what I can't understand is that the city god is one of the 9 evils, but he has always existed in the world and is not in the coffin. The city god continued, "My purpose in approaching you and making you the city god of Tianfu is to completely possess your body. Then I will lead my troops to attack the underworld and become the new god of the underworld." I frowned. This city god's ambition was so big. "I want to subvert the underworld and establish a new order. I can only do this if I get stronger power. And you, Lusu, are the most important chess piece in my 1,000-year plan." I looked at the city god coldly and said, "Do you think I am still in your control as a chess piece?" This sentence stopped the city god. "You are right. You are indeed beyond my control now, but so what? As long as I completely absorb the evil spirit of the 4 evil lands, no one in this world can stop you. Including you. However, I really didn't expect that you would actually find this place. And you would wake up my golden body, but that doesn't matter. I will personally go to the land of the 4 evils to absorb the evil spirit of the land of the 4 evils. By then, it will be your death, Lusu. If I hadn't come here because of the tiger talisman, I wouldn't have discovered the city god's conspiracy. The golden body in front of him has absorbed too much evil energy. If it drags on for a few days, he may really absorb the evil energy of the 4 evil lands completely. Now, the land of the fake 4 evils has been cracked by me. If the city god wants to continue his plan, he must go to the land of the 4 evils in person." The golden body of the city god began to emit a dazzling golden light from its feet, and then slowly disappeared. I looked shocked. He was trying to take back the golden body. "Nidai. Hurry up and do it." Cai Dai was stunned for a moment, then her whole body erupted with colorful light, and she disappeared in a flash. When she reappeared, she was already in front of the golden body of the city god. She stretched out her white and chubby little hands, picked up the sword technique, and pointed it towards the center of the city god's eyebrows. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 704. Just when Cai Dai was about to succeed, a powerful force burst out from the city god's golden body, knocking Cai Dai away. With quick eyesight and quick hands, I stretched out my hand and grabbed Cai Dai's jade arm, and then took her into my arms. The voice of the city god rang in my ears. "Lusu, your true form has returned. It won't be long before you and I will experience a war. I still appreciate you. If you give you a chance and use it for me, you can survive." I looked at the city god coldly and said, "Impossible. I will definitely kill you with my own hands." "Ha ha ha. I hope you can still say such things in front of me." The golden body of the city god turned into dots of starlight and disappeared into the air. At this moment, a dragon roar resounded throughout the world, and then, a dazzling golden light burst out from the crystal coffin. I quickly looked back and saw the dragon-shaped relief carved on the crystal coffin began to move slowly. Then, a golden dragon spread out from the relief. The golden dragon circled and floated in the ancient building. This is the soul of the dragon corpse just now? The golden dragon moved slowly, pointing its huge dragon head at me, and a mighty sound that resounded throughout the world echoed in my ears. Thanks for the rescue. I waved my hand at Jin Long and said, since I promised you, I will definitely do it. Jin Long's huge eyes were filled with gratitude. I asked, you have been staying here, so you must know a lot about what is happening here, right? I have to figure out what's going on here. Because in this way, we can find out the weaknesses of the city god, otherwise there will only be death if we make the city god an enemy. The true dragon soul nodded towards me and replied, I know. Then please tell me something. The true dragon soul pondered for a moment and said, the name of the man just now is Zhang Yuqian, and he is a disciple of Zhang Daoling. As soon as these words came out, I was stunned on the spot. I just guessed that there was an ulterior secret between the city god and Zhang Tianqi, but I never thought that the relationship between the two of them was master and disciple. More than 1,000 years ago, Zhang Daoling took a beggar as his disciple and named him Zhang Yuqian. Zhang Yuqian is extremely talented. He can understand any Taoist skills, formations, and talismans at a glance. Zhang Daoling loves this disciple very much. However, Zhang Yuqian has wolfish ambitions. On the surface, he is upright, but in fact he is a hypocrite. What the real dragon said next made me more and more shocked. In order to pursue immortality and greater power, Zhang Yuqian practiced evil arts, but he did not notice his apprentice's ambition until Zhang Daoling ascended. From this, we can see how terrible Zhang Yuqian is. I have a good relationship with Zhang Daoling. Before he ascended, he asked me to take care of Zhang Yuqian, so I did so. However, the scandalous things he did were discovered by a powerful man named Lu Ziling, who wanted to kill him completely. Later, Zhang Yuqian found me and confessed to me. When the real dragon said this, his tone was extremely angry. I decided to help Zhang Daoling for his sake, and I think he is also determined to change his past. But I never expected that he would actually plot against me. When the real dragon said this, his aura surged, and it seemed that he was very angry. I asked, he plotted against you? How? Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 705. Zhang Yu has a special destiny. Lu Ziling wanted to put him in a coffin and seal it, but when he was entering the coffin, he made a plan for me and used my true dragon energy to cover up the secret, and then his soul ran out. In this way, the physical bodies of Zhang Yuqian and I were sealed in the crystal coffin. Some time ago, the seal of the crystal coffin was loosened, but Zhang Yuqian did not choose to take back his body. I listened and nodded. Through these words of the real dragon, all mysteries are solved. The coffin that the real dragon refers to should be the sky coffin. Zhang Yuqian's soul escaped the seal of the sky coffin because of the spirit of the true dragon. Zhang Yuqian, who escaped from the coffin, found a physical body and became the city god of Tianfu city god. This jade head is really insidious and cunning, and it actually fooled Zhang Tianqi and the real dragon around. I asked, now that Zhang Yuqian has become the city god of Tianfu city god, his soul has returned to his body, and he wants to subvert the existing order of the underworld. Is there any way to stop him? This is my biggest concern right now. The real dragon thought for a while and replied, there is a way. Destroy the feng shui of the four evil lands before him. Without the support of the evil energy of the four evil lands, his strength will be greatly reduced. Then you can find a way. Just destroy it. Destroy the feng shui of the four evil lands. The real dragon nodded, yes, this is the only way to stop him now. It seems that this is the only way to do it. Anyway, I will go to the land of the four evils, because I have promised those 10,000 ghosts to help them solve their soul problems. I looked at the crystal coffin and said to the real dragon, I still need you to do me a favor now. You say. I pointed to the crystal coffin and said, this coffin is very important to me, and I need you to guard it here for a while. This crystal coffin must be the entrance to the sky coffin, and I will definitely be able to use it in the future." The real dragon said that there was no problem. He hesitated and said, "I will put a ray of my soul on you. You already have the spirit of the real dragon, and this ray of soul will be of great help to you. Moreover, you can contact me at any time and deal with Zhang Yuchain together." It was obvious that Zhenlong was very concerned about Zhang Yuchain plotting against him. After that, the real dragon put a ray of his soul into my body, and the rest of the soul returned to the crystal coffin. I took the tiger charm and looked for a way out. Colorful butterfly followed me, raised her little head, and asked, "Is that a real dragon just now?" I nodded and said, "That's right." "Wow! It's a real dragon. It's the first time I've seen it." Kadi looked very excited. I rolled my eyes and said, "Say, this is the first time I've seen a butterfly like you." Cai pouted and said dissatisfiedly, "What's wrong with butterfly? If I grow up, I will be as beautiful as Sister Huaxiu and Master Tianxian." I stretched out my hand, rubbed Cai's little head, and said, "Yes, yes. You are right, I will be looking for a female butterfly." Before she finished speaking, Kaidi reached out her hand, pinched my thigh hard, and said angrily, "Lusu. If you say this, I will be angry. The consequences of being angry will be very serious." I apologized quickly, and just like that, Cai and I climbed out of the pit, fighting and fussing. It will take a lot of effort to leave here. I have to find a way out before I can leave here. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 706. As for the location of the living gate, Zhenlong has already told me. However, what concerns me more is whether Mr. Xie, the leader of the Baiyun sect, is still here. To be fair, I hope he dies here. After all, when that guy goes out, he will only cause trouble for me, and may even seek revenge on me, leading to my death. However, there was such a big space here and I didn't know where to look, so I simply gave up. I came to the door of life, stretched out my hand and gently placed it on it, and circulated the energy of crepe myrtle in my body. The energy of crepe myrtle submerged into the door of life. The next moment, the door of life opened with a bang. Afterwards, I took Cai and left here. When I returned to the foot of the mountain, I saw Su Tianxian anxiously wandering beside the hearse. "Master!" I shouted to Su Tianxian. Su Tianxian's expression froze, and he immediately turned around to look at me, with a look of worry on his brows. She quickly came to me, grabbed my hand, and looked me up and down. "Xiao Su, are you injured?" I shook my head and said, "No." Su Tianxian's frowning eyebrows slowly opened, and she let out a long sigh of relief. Xiao He landed on my shoulder and said, "I said he would be fine. If you still don't believe me, you have to go find him." Then, Xiao He looked at me, "You don't know that when I came back to get the black robe, your master was going to be so anxious. He wished he could go find you directly." Su Tianxian glanced at Xiao He lightly, and Xiao He quickly closed his mouth. In response, I smiled slightly and said, "Master, don't worry, I am no longer the young boy I used to be." Su Tianxian nodded slightly, and then we returned to the car and I told Su Tianxian what happened in Longdong just now. "Are you saying that Zhang Yuchain is the Earth Tribulation evil star?" "That's right." Su Tianxian lowered his head and was silent for a while, then raised his head and said, "I told you why I felt a familiar aura on him." She had long noticed something unusual about Zhang Yuchain, but she just didn't tell me about it. I said, "Master, let's go to Hang Pass as soon as possible, arrange the golden body properly, and then go and destroy the land of the four evils. Su Tianxian nodded. She looked at me, hesitated and said, Xiao Su, otherwise we should wait until dawn before setting off. I know that Su Tianxian is worried about my safety. After all, too many things happened tonight and I am also tired. I thought about it and was about to refuse, but I heard Su Tianxian say in an unquestionable tone, that's it, we'll set off early tomorrow morning. Seeing Su Tianxian's persistence, I said nothing more, leaned on the seat, and fell into a deep sleep. The first ray of sunshine the next morning shone on me. I opened my eyes and saw a piece of clothing covering myself. I think it was Su Tianxian who helped me build it at night, and I couldn't help but feel warm in my heart. Su Tianxian had already woken up. She stared at me with her beautiful eyes open and unblinking. When she saw me looking at her, she quickly averted her gaze. I smiled slightly and said, Master, let's go. Su Tianxian hummed softly. In this way, I drove the hearse to Hang Pass. We had deviated from the previous route, but we were not far from Hang Pass, so we arrived near Hang Pass at noon. Su Tianxian told me that the hearse would definitely not be able to drive in the rest of the way, so we would have to find a horse-drawn carriage or a mourner or a coffin bearer. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 707. I asked, Master, the carriage is easy to find, but where can we find the coffin bearers and mourners? Su Tianxian smiled at me and said, I have traveled far and wide as a teacher, and I have been here before. There is a village not far away, and there is a mourner in it. I was slightly startled. Undertaker, coffin bearer, and paper maker are all very mysterious professions. Undertaker is specialized in organizing funerals. As far as I know, there are 3 types of funerals organized by mourners. The first type is a person who dies normally, the second type is a person who dies suddenly, and the third type is a special existence. The first type does not require much attention at the time, and a normal funeral can appease the soul of the deceased. But the second type is different. People die suddenly, and there is more or less resentment in their hearts after death. But the mourners want to bury these resentful people with a special funeral, because only in this way can the deceased be able to calm down the resentment in their hearts. The third type is actually easy to understand. Special existences are those spirits, ghosts, and even gods. Su Tianxian asked for a funeral at this time, and I knew what her purpose was. She wanted to bury my golden body in Hang Pass. Master, if the golden body is buried, will someone with ulterior motives dig it out? I asked. Su Tianxian shook his head and said, you can rest assured that the funeral organized by the mourner is difficult for gods and ghosts to enter. As long as the grave is touched, karma will be entangled. I nodded, and then Su Tianxian took me to a village called Gukan. The village is not big, with 100 or 10 people. Compared with the villages we visited before, this place is much more advanced. Not only does it have roads, but every household has electricity. Every time I went to the village, it was extremely dilapidated and had nothing. There was no way I could drive a hearse into a village, parade through the city with a coffin, and be kicked out before I even entered the village. Therefore, Su Tianxian could only enter the village alone to find the mourners, while I waited here. After Su Tianxian left, I sat in the car bored. Nai Dai also looked very bored. She asked, what are we going to do next? I replied, I don't know. Cai Dai responded unceremoniously, then what do you know? I really don't know what to do next. It should be to bury Laozi's golden body, but the process is up to the funeral director. About 10 minutes later, Su Tianxian led an old man with silver hair and white beard over. Although the old man is old, he is full of energy, walks as fast as flying, and has a glowing face. I quickly got out of the car. When the old man saw me, he laughed and said, Master Tianxian, this must be Brother Linlong's grandson. Su Tianqian nodded slightly. But I was slightly stunned. The old man in front of me was my grandfather's old friend. To be honest, I already have a shadow in my heart about my grandfather's old friend. Because most of Grandpa's old friends are enemies, except for Zhong Zhengling and Ma Gongzi, and of course Wu 11's grandpa. Seeing me in a daze, the old man smiled and said, "You kid. You look exactly like your grandfather when he was young." He stepped forward and hooked my shoulder, and said affectionately, "Your grandfather and I are very good brothers. He asked me to help before, but I didn't go because I had something to do." The help the old man mentioned should be about the sky coffin. Well. The old man suddenly sighed. If I knew that would be the last time I would see him, I would have put down what I was doing to help him no matter what. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 708. Through chatting, I learned that the old man's name was Zhou Wenyao. 8 generations of ancestors have been mourners, and he is already the 9th generation. He invited us to the village and then to a somewhat simple private house. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw a girl coming out. The girl is about 15 or 16 years old. She looks pure and sweet, has fair skin, and has 2 ponytails. She doesn't have the stage fright or shyness of rural girls at all. She was slightly startled when she saw us, and then greeted us politely. Afterwards, a boy about the same age as the girl came out of the house. The young man in front of him gave people a very uncomfortable feeling. There was no expression on his brows and he was lifeless. "This is my granddaughter, her name is Zhou Wan. And this is my apprentice, his name is Qian Ming Hao, you can just call him Xiao Hao." Later, Zhou Wenyao called his family members to carry the corpse coffin into the yard. A few of us sat in the room discussing what to do next. Zhou Wenyao said, "Master Tianqian has already told me that it is very difficult to bury my golden body. A little carelessness will bring disaster. However, I owe Brother Linlong a favor. Even if it costs me my life, I will complete this matter for him." After hearing this, Su Tianqian said calmly, "Don't worry, as long as I, Su Tianqian, are with you, you and your family will not be harmed in any way." After hearing this, Zhou Wenyao laughed and said, "Master Tianqian is here, so I feel relieved." He continued, "If you want to bury my golden body, that coffin can no longer be used. You must find a suitable coffin." "A suitable coffin?" I asked with some confusion. Zhou Wenyao nodded and replied, "Yes, a suitable coffin. I have a golden body with a majestic aura that makes it difficult for evil spirits to enter. But your coffin reveals a gloomy and ominous aura. If your coffin were to fall, I'm afraid it's counterproductive." I asked, "Mr. Zhou, where should we go to find a coffin suitable for my golden body?" Mr. Zhou shook his head with a smile and said, "No coffin in this world can bear the weight of my golden body." I was speechless for a moment. Isn't saying it the same as not saying it? Mr. Zhou continued, "My golden body must be buried with the heaven and earth as the coffin, and the sun and moon must be in phase. The location and time of burial are also very particular. According to legend, after entering Hang Pass, I understood life and death and the Great Way. Before that, if I could not succeed, I would bury myself in Hang Pass. Obviously, I succeeded in comprehending the Great Way at Hang Pass, otherwise he would not have been able to come out. Before this, I have already found the location of my tomb. As long as we find it, it will be fine." I asked, "Mr. Zhou, do you know this place?" Mr. Zhou nodded, shook his head and said, "I know, but I don't know, because I just heard about it. It's better to have clues than no trace at all. We have to prepare some things before the funeral. Mr. Zhou, please tell me." Mr. Zhou picked up his pipe, took a deep breath, and said, "There is a pagoda on the mountain to the east of the village. Inside is a magic weapon called the sun and moon bead that can absorb the essence of the sun and the moon. We need to use the sun and moon bead to bring it and use the essence of the sun and moon as my coffin. But, that pagoda is very weird. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 709. I couldn't help but ask, what's weird? Mr. Joe blew out the smoke ring and spoke carefully. Under that pagoda, evil spirits were suppressed. Your grandfather and I wanted to take out the sun and moon pearl before. But after we went there, before we entered the pagoda, your grandfather pulled me back, and he was still there. A large formation was set up around the pagoda to prevent anyone from accidentally breaking in. Grandpa couldn't even take out the sun and moon pearl, so what exactly is being suppressed somewhere? I thought for a moment and said, Mr. Joe, don't worry, leave the matter of getting the sun and moon pearl to me. Mr. Joe nodded and said the remaining things to be prepared. During the funeral procession, there must be ghosts clearing the way, and the number of ghosts must not be less than 3. There must also be ghost generals carrying the coffin, accompanied by hundreds of ghosts. After hearing this request, I was slightly stunned. This request may be difficult for others to complete. But it's not that difficult for me. If it's a mistake, just ask Xiang Yi and ask him to call 2 more colleagues. Of course, ghost generals are also easy to complete, that is, using the ghost generals in the ghost sea. As for those 100 ghosts, they need to be invited. Because Yin soldiers are not the same as hundreds of ghosts, if Mr. Joe talks about Yin soldiers, he can definitely use the Yin soldiers in the sea of ghosts. But what Mr. Joe said next made me instantly confused. The most important thing is to invite a powerful person from the underworld to bury me. The lowest level should be a judge. A god at the level of a judge in the underworld. Then who should I go to? I'd better ask Xiang Yi in the evening. I wonder if he has any good ideas. These are the most difficult things to do during the funeral. As for the rest, I will take care of it. I nodded, stood up, cupped my hands towards Mr. Joe, and said gratefully, then please excuse me from Mr. Joe. Mr. Joe waved his hand and said, you don't have to be polite to me, kid. Later, Mr. Joe set his sights on Su Tianqian and said, Master Tianqian, after all these things are prepared, I would like to trouble you and me to go to Hang Pass and look for my tomb. Su Tianqian nodded lightly in agreement. At this moment, Mr. Joe's granddaughter walked in with a plate of fruit. She put the fruit on the table, glanced at me secretly, and left in a hurry. This makes me a little confused. Why is this girl so shy for no reason? When Mr. Joe saw his granddaughter like this, he laughed loudly and said, boy, there is something I forgot to tell you. I once told your grandfather that if his descendants are a boy and a girl, they will get married. Ah! I looked at Mr. Joe in disbelief. Although his words did not make it clear, it was already obvious. That is, Joe Wan and I have an engagement. How can this be done? Putting aside whether I like Joe Wan or not, this is a bit too hasty. Mr. Joe, stop joking, my grandfather has never mentioned this matter to me. Mr. Joe stretched out his hand to smooth his beard. Just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by Su Tianqian. It doesn't count if you have an engagement, because Lu Su is already married. I stiffly turned my head to look at my master. I am indeed married, and the person I want to marry is her. But Su Tianqian and I were tacitly aware of this matter and did not mention it. Because the marriage between a master and a disciple is considered against morality in the eyes of the world. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 710. Although I say this, there are still many master-disciple relationships in this world. For example, Xiao Longnu and Yangguo. I have a very open mind about this matter, as long as I like it, why do I care so much? Of course, I don't know what Su Tianqian thinks. Mr. Zhou laughed a few times when he heard the sentence and said, Master Tianqian, please let me finish what I said. This is indeed what I agreed with Brother Linlong at the time, but Brother Linlong later regretted it. When Su Tianqian heard this, his serious expression softened slightly. Mr. Zhou asked tentatively, I wonder which girl married Xiao Su. Su Tianqian stood up slowly and said calmly, I have no right to tell you. After that, he walked out of the room and I quickly chased after him. I coughed softly and said with some embarrassment, you said that Mr. Zhou is really not opening the pot this time, which makes people quite embarrassed. Su Tianqian hesitated, turned his head, glanced at me lightly, and said lightly, aren't you the same now? I scratched my head in embarrassment, wishing I could give myself a mouth. Is your brain showing off? How could you say such a thing? Su Tianqian stepped forward and walked outside the house. While I was feeling annoyed, I didn't notice the smile at the corner of Su Tianxuan's mouth. Since we had to prepare for the funeral of Lao Tzu, we stayed in Zhou's hometown for the time being. There are a lot of things to prepare for me. So Mr. Zhou left home in a hurry. Mr. Zhou said that people in the whole village must take action. I am planning to call Xiangyi in the evening to discuss the funeral. I was resting in the room, and at this moment, Zhou Wan walked in. I was stunned for a moment and asked, Zhou Wan? What's the matter with you? Zhou Wan sat next to me, lowered her eyes and said nothing. To be honest, I felt a little panicked. Could it be that she came to me to talk about the engagement? As soon as Zhou Wan opened her mouth, I knew I was overthinking it. Brother Lu, are there really ghosts in this world? Zhou Wan raised her head, her eyes filled with curiosity. I said, this thing, you may believe it or not, but whether you believe it or not, you must maintain the most basic respect for things like ghosts and gods. Are there ghosts in this world? Of course. After all, I have experienced so many things. Besides, there are no ghosts in this world, and it is not very realistic. Zhou Wan lowered her eyes again and murmured, Brother Lu, I seem to have encountered a ghost. Meet a ghost? I asked doubtfully. Then you didn't tell your grandfather about this? Zhou Wan shook her head and replied, no, I also arrived recently. I was a little unsure, so I didn't dare to tell Grandpa. You raise your head. Zhou Wan was stunned and raised her head subconsciously. I looked at the anger on Zhou Wan's face and found that her face was darkened and there was a red light flickering in the shadow. Because I have the energy of crepe myrtle, and my 5 senses are much stronger than those of ordinary people, I am very sensitive to people's energy. I am now convinced that Zhou Wan did encounter a ghost. You are right, you did encounter a ghost. Ah! Zhou Wan's delicate body trembled, her eyes full of fear. Then will I die? I signaled Zhou Wan to be calm and asked, tell me what you have been through these days, and I will see if I can help you solve it. Zhou Wan nodded and said slowly, when I was sleeping recently, I felt like someone was always staring at me. Last night, I woke up suddenly and unexpectedly, I found a pair of blood-red eyes staring straight at the ceiling. Staring at me.